Yeah, so firstly, guys, thank you very much for being here. This is our first event and trip to Singapore in Sri Lanka from Singapore, and we hope to do many of these things. So, firstly, thanking the Singapore Global Network. They are main sponsors for this event today as well. So, I'll quickly run through what 8 Circle is. In a nutshell, we are a community. We are a community of founders, investors, ecosystem partners, mainly helping businesses to expand, driven through introduction. So, if you want to go to various markets, etc., we believe in founders helping each other and doing those necessary introductions so you could expand, or whether anywhere in the region or overseas as well or globally. So right now we have nearly 2,000 members. We have bases in 4 countries: Singapore, Philippines, Sri Lanka, and Hong Kong. And quick snapshot of our parent company, which is Tech Labs UK. We are licensed by the Bank of England for tokenization and the digital payment as well, and tech in Singapore as well. We're building a couple of technologies that would help these introductions or expansions to be more effective. So one is Circle 8, which is the platform which creates events like this, whether it's roundtables, networking events, or even one-to-one meeting facilitations. It will help to more business to improve overseas. We host our own set of events. So this is one tour that we are planning around Southeast Asia, from Hong Kong to Philippines. Okay, the country has gone missing. Bali has gone missing. So Sri Lanka and Malaysia as well. And so this is an interesting initiative we are looking for next year. This year, by the end of the year, hopefully, and it's under the work. So what we're doing is we're trying to build a unicorn founder, because the key lesson I learned when I moved to Singapore 3.5 years ago was the exposure that we get on what is possible. And nothing beats it than to hear it from a unicorn founder itself. So they're trying to create like a 2 or 3 day program, bring a unicorn founder, make it open for about 10 to 15 founders who could go sit along with the unicorn founder, see how we build, and hopefully that will drive inspiration, more learnings for you to build a unicorn farm. We work with all the major conferences throughout Southeast Asia, from Consensus, Switch, Singapore FinTech Festival, on 2020, and so on. So I work with major brands as well, from Microsoft, GFTN, Airwallex, and more collaborations to come as well. Awesome. So you could follow us on links. I'm not sure which is WhatsApp and LinkedIn now. So I think you could try your luck and see where it goes. And stay connected. Look forward to meeting all of you all by the end of the day. Let's look to network and hopefully see more global businesses evolving from Sri Lanka.
Thank you so much, Vidushan. I'll do a quick intro for TSA Media Group, which is where I'm from. We're a media communications company, and we are very excited to be partnering up with 8 Circle and Vidushan to continue to bring events like this to Sri Lanka and the ecosystem. As you go through the session, you realize what is that is available for us regionally, and also thanks to events like this that Vidushan mentioned, even the unicorn event. So stay tuned, very excited. If we can have Niresh, head of program for Hatch, who were very kind to enable us to use their space. If you want to think more words.
Hello and good evening, everyone. It's great to see so many familiar faces in the room today. It's always nice to reconnect with friends from across the ecosystem. At Hatch, we see ourselves as enablers within the startup ecosystem. Thus, all things startup. Whether it's through co-working programs, investments, or simply creating spaces for collaboration, we've always believed that the community sits at the heart of everything that we do. Which is why it's exciting to host a conversation around scaling beyond our audience. Because for startups in Sri Lanka, thinking globally is no longer an optional, it's necessary. And if you are here to learn, connect, or give back to the ecosystem, you're definitely going to like this. We're grateful to have such an incredible panel with us today, bringing perspectives as founders, as investors and ecosystem builders who are all contributed towards helping startups scale beyond Sri Lanka. And of course, big shout out to InCircle, to TSA Media, and to the Singapore Global Network for supporting and making this event possible. So thank you everyone, and let's get this program started. Cheers.
Thanks so much. Lovely. Thank you so much, Dinesh. If I can invite the rest of the panel onto the stage now. Right. We also want to take a quick moment to thank our hydration partner, Mackles.
Light tekari amana kidni.
Lovely. Good evening, everyone. I hope everyone's feeling good. Thank you so much for making it out here, despite the gloomy weather outside. I feel the energy in the room, and I'm very excited to get started. Today's theme for us is scaling beyond borders, and we have a simple idea that drove this event in the first place, right? One thing we believe is Sri Lanka is not a place without talent. It's very easy for us to understand that when we look around the room. We have hugely talented people just on the panel, in the space, right? But what we have come here to learn is, what do we do to take advantage of our skills? What do we need to look at in terms of networking? What do we need to look at in terms of connecting with ecosystems, not just locally, regionally? How do we deal with funding? How do we deal with building better products, better systems, better companies? How do you take advantage of opportunities you might not be thinking of as obvious for young founders out there? We put together this panel to help you all answer this, because the people on this panel have decades of experience that we think you guys would be able to really take advantage of. We do have a Q&A session at the end, so please don't hesitate. We have a list of questions, we'll try to get through them, but would love to hear from you guys as well as we go through this session to the end. Brilliant. So let me just quickly introduce once again the panelists we have with you today. You guys met Vidushan earlier, but let me introduce him once more. Vidushan Premathiratne, he is obviously a founder who has done this before. He's built 2 companies, he's moved abroad, he's tapped into networks, he's built his network across regions, and now he wants to bring this lens and provide us access to these networks and these resources. And today, I think he will be contributing to us by ensuring that he talks about market access, how to be visible, credible, connected, and be ready for opportunities beyond the local market. Thank you so much, Vidushan, for being with us today. He flew down just to attend this event today. Next, we have Chalinda Abeykoon. I think everyone who has been in the startup space knows Chalinda, mainly for his beautiful hair, but also for the fact that for the past decade and a half, I think he has been someone all of us has looked up to. Someone we've sort of followed, not just on LinkedIn, but at events, who he's very openly been reaching out, networking, providing opportunities. And right now, I think he may be someone who understands the journey we've taken as a country when it comes to this ecosystem, someone who understands where we are right now, but also someone who really knows where this journey is going to lead us into over the next 5 to 10 years. So thank you, Chalinda. We look forward to hearing from your wealth of experience about funding, how to build better companies, and how to really get the most out of good founders. Sameera, thank you so much for being here today. For people who don't know, Sameera Nilupul is CTO of KAST Singapore, currently valued at $600 million. He made this journey from his own company, which he founded, called Kaiju Labs. And today, I think he will really be a channel and a lens for us to look at what makes a good product, what does the acquisition journey look like, and what does, from where he stands right now, what does the landscape look like for tech, product, innovation in Sri Lanka, and how we can take that abroad. Last but not least, Thilan, Wijesinghe, thank you so much. We're very grateful for you to be here. We know you have a busy schedule, but Thilan is an institution on himself. He's been in this game for decades. He's helped with policy, infrastructure. He's a founder of his own right. He's one of the pioneers for the tourism industry. And when it comes to understanding the regional scope, the macro lens, understanding about investment banking, where capital needs to move, I don't think there's anyone quite like him to have that combination of skills to contribute to the session. So Thilan, thank you so much for being with us as well. Right. Now that the introductions are done, I'll do a quick intro of myself and then we'll jump right into it. So my name is Nilupul. I'm from TSA Media Group. Very, very happy to be here because we get to partner up and be the official Sri Lankan partner for 8th Circle. And we have some exciting things planned for the rest of the year. So please stay tuned, scan the QR codes when you can, and let's connect after the networking, during the networking session. And looking forward to talking to you all more further. But now let's go right into it. I have a question that I think we'll touch on from the idea of Sri Lanka's potential. We understand that Sri Lanka does not have a lack of talent. We have tremendous hunger. We have resilience, grit. We work under huge constraint. It's been a consistent trend for the past 20, 30 years. But in your opinions, and this is for everyone in the panel, so what is the single biggest thing holding Sri Lankan companies back from scaling beyond borders right now? And perhaps we can start with Vidushan. Vidushan.
Yeah. So I would say the biggest hurdle that is the mindset shift that most founders need to have, because looking at many founders, especially from Singapore lens, what they mainly get for a country like Singapore is exposure to various founders who have achieved various new ideas, the landscape, the scope of what is possible in a particular industry at sea. And that is the critical driver that they need to inculcate with the Sri Lankan ecosystem as well. What is possible beyond your local market and how to attain that. And that takes a radical mindset shift of being more exploratory, pro-driven, and also be more observant of many things that is quite possible. So the big challenge, I could say, just to wrap it up, is the mindset.
I don't think there is one single challenge per se. What I've kind of experienced in the last 16 years is that the risk taking is kind of, looked frowned upon. So if you fail or whatever, and if you look at, and that has improved over the years. Now people are taking a lot more risk. But then there's not a lot of support, whether it's your family or like even when I was starting, 16 years ago, being an entrepreneur is like when you tell you're being an entrepreneur, it's like, oh, you're not smart enough to find a job, hence you're starting a company. But obviously these things have now changed. So the fear is there. Some of it is coming from the cultural side of it, but I think it's also internal as well. And frankly, if you are an entrepreneur, you got to be some level of an asshole, right? So you got to be able to say, I don't, care about what other people think. And I think we put a lot more value of how society looks at us. And that prevents a lot of the people as well. But there's, like I said, there's multiple things that kind of work together. It's a status society, who you are, and all of these things matter. So all these things, little contributions, nuances kind of compound. But I think that if you are a really entrepreneur, you just gotta, not give what other people think and then just kind of go out. And now going out is a lot more easier compared to 10 years ago when we were starting.
Sameera?
Unheard is the honest one.
Yeah. In my opinion, also there's lots of talent, especially in the tech industry. But the thing is what I have seen is we see in Sri Lanka there's very less tech companies popping up right now. And the other hurdle is getting that initial funding. So yeah, if we can bridge that gap, I'll see a lot more success. And the other thing that I see in the Sri Lankan startup ecosystem is lots of people try to do B2B companies. No one tries to do B2C company. That's the easiest thing to do. For example, think about a SaaS product. So I'll tell you the story about there's a API testing tool called
Zapier.
I think like you might have like almost all the developers knows about it. I don't remember the name now. This tool is like value in billions now. This was developed by Indian developers Postmat. So this was built by an Indian developer to solve his problem. Then he like released it, and then got traction and stuff worth hundreds of millions of dollars. So you don't have to like think about like solving a problem to a business. If you can solve a problem to one of your fellow developers, fellow marketeer or like a fellow accountant, there will be like hundreds of thousands of people all around the world who would like want that solution. So like we should create that B2C mindset, because now we have internet, so you can approach like millions of people all around the world through internet. We have to do that mind shift change in Sri Lanka, thinking about B2C rather than we coming and trying to sell to B2B, which is a very hard business.
Thank you. Thilan, anything from your side? Yeah.
Many of us did our market say about industry. So I was at a Shambo about 12, 13 years back when Abeykoon was started. And 4 of us as shareholders, Ramin, Fish as he was the CPO management team. Zulfar was part of that team. He went on to start PicMe. We decided to fund it with sufficient funds and telling the shareholders, look, this is your initial capital. You will have to work towards an exit. So that pressure of an exit was there right at the outset, because we didn't, I'm not from the tech industry. I'm a simple investment banker. And in fact, the company did exit to Dialogue. And that's when I learned that, corporates cannot run tech companies, and they work for us too long. There are sellouts, and that was the end of the month-on-month or quarter-on-quarter story. And eventually, Dialogue sold, but Dr. KBA Biologic sold it to Dallas. Though we as founders made money, Peter corporate didn't. And also a lesson that I learned was that when you're part of the corporate, you cannot change the culture. Now we had after the founder left the company, there was an excellent CEO who ran the business. He was so good at running the business that he was promoted to go to Malaysia. So be careful. So that's one lesson that I learned, that when you do exit, and if you are remaining there as the CEO and founder, that you exit to the right organization, the right culture. The second thing that what I wanted to mention about what's holding us back, and I continue to relate to my TVO as chairman of the board of investment, where in 1996, 97, he founded IIT. Dr. Lashkar and I are the founders. The initial capital was as grant capitals, not-for-profit was given by founders and the board of investment. And today, we have 27,000 students, and I continue to serve on the board. One of my unmet ambitions is to create the USC-affiliated accelerator, which is our the Stanford and Rice form of the IITs in Madras. Lack of time. I mean, I run my own businesses in investment banking and tourism, but eventually I'll get to it. And my challenge again has been for the university to understand that an accelerator has to have a different incentive structure, different culture. So university professors cannot run accelerators. So that's a much felt need in the country. Secondly, or thirdly, I think the policy environment is not right. What's wrong with this mic? Particularly the transition environment, and I be Maggie or government knows for 7 years asking about user liability partition legislation, which allows aggregation of funds within Sri Lanka itself. So that you would have to see these BTLCs hurry through these manage funds as opposed to the prohibiting Jose saying, until that any investment money with me. And because in Sri Lanka, my investment banking business, we advise some of the most prominent family officers in the country. And it's not a problem to tell those family officers to allocate 3%, 4%, 5% of their portfolio to startups. But they would like those investments to be properly vetted, to have proper fund managers, and that's where Chalinda, I mean, we've done fantastic work in that regard. But in order to encourage more capital to come into this industry from our own country, we are taxing those investments because we don't have. I can explain to you what LLP legislation is, and if you actually see Google the original Silicon Valley, one of the three things that they say what's caused the success of Silicon Valley was in introduction of private partnership legislation, which did not result in SME or taxation when you took this capital and put into funds. Finally, the point is that what we're lacking is some level of state and government support, whether it is taxation or infrastructure. And I'll say this one example. When I signed the board investment agreement in 97, I believe, with Vidushan. There was no NASDAQ, there was no Hyderabad. And Kanagaratne signed the board of investment agreement with me. He asked me, Thilan, can you help me find a building where there's a fiber optic cable? So I said, what is a fiber optic cable? I mean, I didn't know what it was. And when he explained it to me, I went to the very next board meeting and got funding from the state to provide grant funding to the World Trade Center to lay off fiber optic cable at the World Trade Center. And that's where about is the start for their business. So I have this idea example from almost 30 years back. So there's the other factor that's it's me. So.
Absolutely. Thank you. And I think a lot of what you mentioned, still we're dealing with like the blockers that we have to go through, the frustration that might be there. So hopefully we can figure that out, but maybe not right now. But thank you, Pal, for that. I do have one more follow-up question for you guys. So given the sort of breadth of knowledge, I think maybe this is something that would be really helpful for the people in the audience right now, which is that Sri Lankan companies build great products. That is true. But when we go regionally, sometimes we might be seen as low-cost executives. And it becomes a trap for us. What's one of the ways where we can really align the true value that is being brought from our products to a global scale? What is the gap that is there? What are some of the insights that you all have seen, maybe from your own visits abroad and your own sort of interactions with VCs or investors, private investors? Any insights there just to sort of align the value of Sri Lankan product to the real, true global scale that we hope to have? Yeah, good, Sam.
Yeah, so I just indeed what the app started. So we were two incubators when I first into Singapore, and that was a big factor in our growth because those projects structured, driven by partners who were entrepreneurs, some PHP, Indian businesses. So that's where PVQ, the AS professors in PCAM apparently, I use the word maybe, and we need to promote entrepreneurs who had that upbringing, advisees, entrepreneurs and organizational. You're perfectly right on that. And on a country like Singapore, there's about 220 such accelerators, incubators doing that job. And it creates opportunities for overseas founders like us to go to those countries and expand from that, because that's a upbringing well supported by the company. So just to talk on the grant system, so any Singaporean-owned business is Singapore is up to $100,000 Sing dollars per market they expect. That's how much the government takes. And out of that 50,000 is for purely getting introduced to protection partners, customers, investors. That's the application. Even to exhibit, but 1,000 is out. You go incorporate the government digital. So that's the lifeblood of the Singaporean mindset I actually created. So just create on the question of value. It depends on where you buy. Let's say, for example, a software engineer, to take how much they're paid, Ceylon, and there you see how much are they paid in, say, Silicon Valley, for example, by 3 to 4 times. So same as you think of the product, you think of where a value is at which market the value is. There. So you might solve the same problem which we offer 3 kinds of less value compared to maybe another country or more direct country. So that's where you talk to. And Going for foreign country today means you don't need to incorporate. You can go to partners, build the relationships, and expand even to take override. And on the example of what Sameera bought is today Billy is also becoming very straightforward. So you don't need a fully fledged product if on the tech side. You could just build a initial prototype, test it in the market just within a few hours. It's in an overseas market if you had the right distribution channels, which can be just merely found to be. So that's my quick table.
On the question, so I think there was a time when the theory was, you build something for Sri Lanka, use Sri Lanka as a test bed, and then kind of, take it overseas. I personally don't feel that the equation works anymore. I think if you're going to build something global, go global from day one. Kaiju was similar, we invested. It was just a presentation and Sameera came. There's no product or anything, right? So if your goal is that, you got to go outside. The other fact is, again, touching on what Thilan also mentioned about corporates. If you're doing something B2B, Sri Lankan corporates don't pay, right? So a lot of entrepreneurs want to go and sell to corporates because they want to get the logo. You get the logo, but somebody's eventually going to do a due diligence and you realize you've, sold it for peanuts. If you sold it for $1,000, you can't increase it to $10,000 later on. So we also don't value, and part of it is, like what correctly as you said, I think our post-independent economy was purely driven by labor arbitrage, right? Every single industry that we have, and now especially with tech, you don't have that. So I think at the same time, it's very easy to be here and sell globally. Case an example is Chalinda. I mean, they can share more information on how they did that. And so that mindset change is important. So if you're going to do something, you got to go out from day one, serve those customers. And Sri Lanka is also a country where if there is somebody with white skin using your product, we will happily use it, right? We still have that post-colonial hangover. Then it's easy to sell to Sri Lanka. Then everybody wants to buy your product. So, maybe rather than trying the same time, right? The other thing is the time taken to convince a local customer versus a foreign customer. Sometimes it's the same thing. So I think one of the biggest mistakes entrepreneurs make is you have to value yourself, your effort that you're putting in. Until you don't value yourself, you will not build that discipline and you will not go through that hardships. It's much more easier to do it, right? We've all gone through this where, we slept at airports because we don't have money to, we only have money to buy the air ticket. And even our Singapore office, I think they used to come and work there. And we still have entrepreneurs where, they'll go to our Singapore office, they'll sleep on the couch. That's fine. Everyone goes through that. So you have to have that kind of resilience to go through it. I think that has to change.
Yeah. To add to Chalinda's point, yeah. So like even
So to keep it close, he's not used to hockey. That's it.
if you want to like build and scale, like let's say for Sri Lankan startups, like for us usually basically like the capital raising was like super difficult in the earlier days, but if you can like look into these programs like Singapore, like there are like hundreds of accelerators. So the thing that you can get is like you can apply to these accelerators. Like for example, we got into an accelerator called 10ET. So we got like 70,000 Sing dollars funding. Plus there's this Singapore government visa program called Entrepreneurs. So like basically if you are an entrepreneur from a different country, and if you get selected to a Singaporean government approved accelerator, basically like you get 2 years of visa, like, so it's super easier for you to like move there and like open up a bank account, register the business, and take it from there. That's the first thing. And then the second thing is like if you raise 100,000 Sing dollars from a Singapore registered VC, few days from this guy, you can apply for that as well. So these two are the easiest paths that you can like as a business establish in Singapore. So like there are lots of other benefits as well for doing that, especially the ecosystem. So yeah, and the other thing is like there are like lots of other support programs, like let's say if you register here like as a, let's say basically a SaaS product or like a cloud product, you have to like pay cloud AWS services like which by cash, like from day one it goes from your capital. But as soon as like you enter a program like this, like you get credits, like you can starting from like $2,500 up to $250,000, you can get AWS credit, Google Cloud credit, which means like you are saving capital. But if you are stuck here, like you have to use your capital that you have to use for other things in this as well. So research about these programs, like there are like programs that you can apply, like it's super easy to apply, like it's like maybe 1 hour application, but once you get selected, like part to success becomes like the probability goes higher.
Thilan, anything to add there? If you want me to repeat the question as well. Yeah, of course. So the idea is that our products, whether it's tech, whatever it is, become considered like labor arbitrage. It's low cost execution. But looking at the lens you have with regional markets, like what do you think we need to do or change in our mindset in terms of actually positioning ourselves to the true, real global value of what we can contribute?
Okay, yeah. I'm already this answer from my own experience.
Yes, please.
So what it's up like is my younger son Harish. He just gave an easy design of his story. So look, so today his revenue is booked into Estonia. Now I don't know whether he's violating exchange control, but I hope there are no central bankers here. So look into that. Is what I can say, right? Secondly, again, this is based on my own experience, and I can, looking back at anything.lk, wow.lk, one of my biggest disappointments was that we could not break into the outstations. Now, 15 years on, smartphone penetration having increased, our level of digital literacy, I think, is pathetic. Again, you guys know more than I do. And I can remember having strategy sessions, telling the management team, having walked into certain rural areas. I mean, when I was much younger, I used to do surveys to understand, how households think. One of the very simple things I explained was that I went to a Sanasa training center, the outskirts of the town in the Guraibu district. And I pulled up the entire video of CEOs that are on NVentures, which was far wider. And if those other fulfillment centers could have been, or some of the centers would have been at the fulfillment center, the rural folks would have had a far wider choice than walking on year shop fronts. Would they go to the street lobby and low to find your shop? Now, why have to be cut this? I don't have the answer, right? So think local as well. And why your dog people think of those that there are so many local problems, of course, that are not solved. So one of the areas that I'm working with, because I'm passionate about Suwanda Territories and I co-founded the Seamando Coach Retail my personal interest, I'm looking at how the organizations can be scaled in an environment of AI, in an environment where labor is becoming extremely difficult, and in an environment where customers who pay for small luxury tourism are expecting more and more in terms of service. So that's something I'm talking to a tech team, and my advisor on that is Mangala Karunaratnam, all of you know, the guy who founded Kelsey. One final example of someone, he monetized this in a different way. Is a guy called Miguel.
Miguel Cuna, a Spanish guy, who came to Sri Lanka 25 years ago and helped. He was a hiking enthusiast. He's the guy who created the trails of tea trails. And for 9 years of his life, he walked the length and breadth of Sri Lanka, which eventually became the Pico Trail, which in 2025 became one of top 10 National Geographic new tourism products anywhere in the world. Now, he wants to show on how to monetize, but how you see monetize it to dollar funding from USA via the EU. And today you have an US state parade and offers on the game and white the whole program away. And I'm going to work with you to see, okay, how can that innovation be translated into various other forms of profit givers, or the eco-train itself is not for profit, not make money out of not over 10,000 people I think on average for people. It's the most innovative tourism product that has been researched by. If you don't know, or you can Google it, if you haven't, with a trade, you should kind of walk in pretty much stages. So there is, other startup type opportunities, affiliate Sri Lanka, which are not necessarily tech, but all tech, or, all concepts marrying with the tech, whether it is a luxury crane service or so it's up to nothing I'm working on, or how you provide greater satisfaction to people who patronize one at hotels. And how we cut the outside market, say it's agribusiness or whether it's just plain and simple distribution. Sorry, Pando.
No, that's totally fine. And I guess just on that point, it's maybe perhaps if we understood the value of what we have right now here and capitalize on it, maybe we'll have a better understanding of how to position ourselves across the globe as well. Maybe these two are actually related, and maybe it's a symbiotic relationship that we can learn something from. Honestly, these are meant to be my warm-up questions, and the panel is just killing it right now. So let's actually get started. Like the first proper question I have for Vidushan. Vidushan, so a lot of Sri Lankan companies, like we were just referring to here across the panel, look at Singapore, UAE, Australia, other regional markets. But the reality is those markets test companies quickly. And that's a fundamental reality maybe some of us don't appreciate. So could you maybe share a little bit of information about how when we enter these markets, what's the first challenge that tends to come up for founders or products or businesses?
Yeah, so I think in today's context, it can break down bit at it. So challenge we don't care how do we enter a market. So therefore, I initially elaborate on a wall-up version that basically you can build relationships. So you can identify people who are distributed and so on. Singapore has the lovely infrastructure. There is a lot of events there. So you just go to Lua, identify the event, and there's good chance you'll be a good distributor or someone to connect you, and they bet at the market. They don't have any corporate, haven't done anything, or you're gonna simple outreach on a LinkedIn, I'll be able to do it. So going over to a country like Singapore today is far easier than what we did 5-10 years now. And I think Sameera in Chanta can add to that as well. And there you talk about, okay, how do you fit your product? Okay, how do you find product market fit in a country like Singapore? So Sami, are you okay, Singapore to spawn market at the intersection, or it's a financial part where the markets need? So that's your opportunity to expand overseas, and that's where you're told that addressable market is quite large. And in the space we are in, so I was into fintech, others in investment at the most of my career. And now we are literally putting fintech for humans with a simple value proposition of doing introductions, which is an open market, government grants are back here. So we found product market fit just not the government grant, because there's not much people facilitating that 20 billion market of doing helping Singaporean businesses get connected with potential customers, partners outside Singapore. So that's a P-farm product. So similarly, you find where your product has that need even overseas market. You might need to twist and change, trial and error, and once you get that, that's all you need to do. So you don't need to incorporate a business. You don't need to do what a lot of operational stuff you could have had to do by that. It's become far similar.
Thilan, if I can maybe just tap into you here a little bit as well. Just given your experiences, if you can elaborate, would be great. But Just curious, when a company is at a stage where it has gotten a good cadence going and it's actually got a good product, and I know right now earlier we were talking about Sri Lanka and how we need to sort of look at what's here. For the people out there in the audience who might be following a different path but would appreciate your point of view on this, how should they actually evaluate that first foreign market entry point? Is there any insight you had on that?
Gosh, difficult question. I think prior to looking at the foreign market, I mean, you need to, I think, have people advising you. I mean, reach out to people like Mangala and others and test your hypothesis. And I'm at the moment looking at investing in a particular platform. And I brought in two experts, who know their programming or, how these algorithms work. And they picked holes. I mean, founder was great. I mean, a lot of effort has gone into creating this particular platform, which was interesting for me from the perspective of the tourism stuff that I was looking at. And this is scalable, in India, because this particular person has looked at a model in India and actually further improved it. It was a budget hotel model to take it to a more luxury, more robust,
leather. So that would be one bit of advice on that I can give is talk peers who don't talk about my peers and matters.
No, that's completely right. I have a question for Chalinda as well. Thank you, Thilan. I'll just ask this bluntly. Currently, as of 2026, do you feel like most founders in Sri Lanka are underfunded, or do you feel like not many companies are yet fundable? And how do you assess that actually as well?
I think there's quite a bit of, is this on? Use this is check. Yeah. Now it's working. Okay, I think in all honesty, there's all, so this is supply and demand, right? The funding part of it, I think the lens that people look at it is every company deserves. But from an investor standpoint, you're not looking at a company that deserves funding. You're looking at, okay, where is that, return ultimately is going to come. And I think that's the part that hasn't grown. Otherwise, if you raise capital without, like what Thilan said when they were doing anything, okay, you need to have some level of, you might not know who you're going to exit to, but you want to be able to get to that stage, right? Otherwise, you're just kicking the can down. I don't think founders have understood that particular piece, right? So they need 100,000. Okay, let me go and raise 100,000. And a lot of and still to your question, a lot of the founders that I meet, it's not that the ideas are bad, the products are bad. It's just that I feel like they have decided to be an entrepreneur because they don't like to work in a corporate, right? That is majority of the founders, and that's the worst founder to kind of fund, right? So, if I work in a corporate, I'll get a 250,000, 350,000 salary. So they expect the same because you have a certain lifestyle that you need to maintain, and hence they want to go and raise capital, right? So being a founder is all about being very, very resourceful. You gotta grind it out. So you had that aspect of the companies that are. So even if you look at, I probably look at about 40 companies a month easily. Let's take out 20 is not fundable. 20, 25 is not fundable. The rest of the companies are good. It's just that we are not really clear. And then we also operate as a thesis in terms of the type of companies that we invest. There's an industry stage and so on and so forth. So there is a lack of capital as well. There's a lack of risk capital. And Sameera pointed this out as well. Very few companies are raising. I don't know if anybody is actively investing. That part is also there. So the both are true in that situation.
Sameer, if I can tap into you here a little bit. We've covered quite a bit of ground in terms of what's going on in the landscape right now. But I think the core question for some people in the audience might be, we have talent, we have ideas, we have engineers. Why don't we have more global competitive products especially in your industry as well?
I think the main reason I see is like the mindset, and then like the other one of the main failure factors.
So if I can just press you there, can you clarify what you mean by, no, I heard you, it's just mindset. Can you just elaborate on that? Is it very similar to what Chalinda was speaking about, like the risk-taking aspect? When you say mindset from your point of view, where you stand right now, what is that mindset exactly?
The position is like you're awesome, like legit. So can you start really like you routine it when you like get go, especially like when you get easy funding from USPC per I they push you to the maximum. So like yeah, like super slow, then cut that to like the US Southeast. They build it things in months like and then like it depends effects. But one of the key mindset problems that he have is that like he do startups eating like could be like time. If you build something like you have ability like maybe 1 month or half month or maximum 2 months at a late 80%. And they'll try to sell and get money out of that customer. If the customers doesn't pay as some point you do that and you did you are doing something well and they like if it's from pretty spread that out at like start from the that is one of the changes the yeah so that those daily that's we keep on doing the same thing again and again like and we try to like somehow like the pick our way up way the someone like if that there like us.
Perfect later feels in the approaches has symbols to
Sorry, can I add to that? On the mindset, uh, when you started, you mentioned that Sri Lanka has potential. So this is something that I've heard even when I was schooling, right? For more than 25 years, we've been in. I think that itself is a problem because we tend to have this superiority complex that we have great potential. We've created, all these things 2,500 years ago and blah, 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 all these things. But talent is universal, right? And global markets, if you are good, they don't care who you are, whether you are male, female, what's your pronouns, which country you're from, and so on and so forth. So Sameera is absolutely right. I think the challenge is we tend to have this superiority complex because we are talent, right? But in the global listing, nobody gives a shit, right? Ultimately, it's about what's your speed. The only advantage startups have is speed, right? There's no board, there's nobody to take permission, nothing. You're doing it. So if you're not executing really fast, then you're not doing. And I think we've seen this so much in locally as well.
Chilan, I see taking some notes. Anything to add there?
look, you need to apply yourself assuming as you do on the streets you free if you will make work. Without that hunger, it won't work. And that's on Sakik in Architect as well. Part of the horrible equitization that has been pretty for survey for 10 years. We take our look, with the advent of IPL, with the advent of modern training techniques, look here, I predicted, I don't know, 7 years back that in my lifetime we'll never win another ICC trophy. I have my reasons. So similarly, maybe I can apply that analogy to say, I don't think there'll ever be a unicorn in this country. I hate to say that. But unless we address these intangible issues of, allowing venture capital to be formed in this country, in this jurisdiction through proper taxation methods, and being run by hard-nosed fund managers, not friends and family. Uncle, I call this the Ado Machan culture. The worst thing that you can have, whether it's for cricket or whether it's for startups. So as long as we have these hang-ups, and this is probably what you mean by mindset, so I'm quite older than you, so I can send the Prabhu or mindset. I'm sorry, you won't develop as a country, you won't develop as a sporting nation, we won't develop as a startup ecosystem.
Maybe that's something we all need to hear and really take in as well. Honestly, you were next in line as well. I think this actually ties in perfectly. Just to zoom out a little bit as well, the market perception of Sri Lanka as investor friendly, the country confidence people have when they look at Sri Lanka, might not be the best right now. So, in your opinion, one could make serious investors more confident about Sri Lanka as something, as a place where their money can grow.
Sri Lanka has been fantastic at unbelievable there, right? I can tell you when I was a lot younger, a whole bunch of us, all of the 320s and 30s, we privatized telecom, which was essentially the bedrock of the growth in the IT industry. A few of us homeland a university because, say, university are not graduating enough, and look at where we are at the moment. And sadly, we are blasted in cope that we robbed Mahapol money. Mahapol had nothing to do with the start commencement of SLI. It's a long story, right? So when something good is being attacked, right? When someone who's an outlier is being seen, so the fact of the matter is that my advice to young people, be realistic of what your country can provide for you and make decisions accordingly. I run my businesses looking at the government being irrelevant because I'm realistic of what our politicians can deliver. I've been in government. I've sacrificed 7 years of my life, 5.5 years of full time of my peak period. I would have run some corporates, but I have no regrets. I have no regrets. That's why you be able to solve complex problem law. You are be here for the guidance. So be realistic. And frame your life accordingly. This is not to say, look, this government is paying my day. No, there are opportunities. Both my children, we decided we to take our physicals here. Guess you have the options here. But have one to care because this still is a country that needs your talent. So I my answer is that our perception of us as an investment destination is not big. Just to go your statistic, 1997, net foreign direct investment as a percentage of GDP was 2.8%. At the time we had the war. Today it's 0.6, 0.7%. Right? But good things are slack. I'm overlooking almost a $70-80 million investment pipeline into tourism. Right? So find your niche. Okay, I have to deal with the government to get approvals. That's natural in any country. It's a bit more bureaucratic here. It might take a bit longer, but you have to weather those issues. But still for all, there are opportunities in this country and that again sometimes is a problem because in India, if you put a job application, what would attract maybe 60-70 job applicants here would attract 6,000. You're forced to be that much sharper because there's someone next to you trying to take your position. So understand that because you're competing with the world, you're not in a microcosm of just you're competing as you try to say Chalinda. Thousands of people who have the same idea as well as much great power. Right, but what is lacking is that mindset, which is really, if this does not work, I'm going beyond streets. So that's basically my combining ourselves.
So, no, if anyone wanted to feel motivated after this session, I think this is really what you needed to hear. But thank you for that. Very important for us to sort of take that into mind, that mindset shift. And we spent a couple moments now on that segment of sort of what we have discussed. So I want to ask Vidushan now, right? Vidushan, we still have people here who may have the right mindset, who may have the right attitude, may have that do or die approach to how they get their work done. For those people right now, if they could take 2 or 3 simple steps to plug into global opportunity without burning up their runway, maybe they are bootstrapping, maybe they're just starting off, but they have something good. What's your 2 to 3 steps that they can follow?
So, good question. So, I think you keep it up and down way, right? In some ways, it's about where you put the capital and how strategically you do it. So, I'll be biased towards my approach of expansion, which is getting more people, giving relationship. That's the primary one, and that's secondly understanding where is the value of these the product that you're actually building, understanding that part and how big the problem it is that you're solving with your solution comes in. Because the more deeper, more difficult the problem that you're solving, the higher it's going to be big. And finally, the jurisdiction where property is going to fit in. That because say in certain countries or certain jurisdiction would be paid differently based on how it's valued. It's like a Coca-Cola bottle surface at one price go to say a first double table is a different price because the same Coca-Cola bottle. So where you're going to be value is going to be different. So say it is a product. So the same problem which I have elaborated earlier. In Sri Lanka it might be one price, but Singaporeans might be 3 to 18 times more for that same problem that you're solving, depending on the jurisdiction and how expensive the alternatives are. So that's what you need to, or the 3 main letters that you could go fast and you could do it. Much simpler today, which we are in that environment. So I agree with what Ian said earlier as well. So yes, we're keeping a foot down, we're keeping about, I think we encourage to learn on the stage here, but be open of the possibilities that are there in the world, which you could be in Sri Lanka today and explore. So that's one of the words I opened up to. With so much the connectivity, so much of ways that you could get connected to potential partners in a low risk spaces. We talked about risk as well. So that's what we need to stay.
If I can actually ask something through this now, through the conversation, something seems to be common is the mindset, the quality of not just the business or the product, but the person. Everyone on this panel has a good network. People must be approaching you all regularly, asking for, hey, can we have a meeting? Can we have a coffee? So on and so forth. When you meet someone, how do you really, gauge if this person is going to be ready for the next stage? Or what actually turns you off from talking to these people? Like, of course, you'll be, open to an initial conversation. But once you have that conversation, how do you know this person maybe might not be the right fit for that next step with me to go into a network, go into a meeting room, go into a venture situation, private equity situation? How do you make that assessment? Just on a soft, quick sort of run through, if I can. Very curious to hear about that. Vidushan, you can obviously start off as well, yeah.
Yeah. So I think I'll put it to the whole this is something we learned quite early in our youth as well. Something I think over the documentary of Steve Jobs. What is signal? What is noise? So what Steve Jobs thought was, okay, in order for a task to be completed or his mission to be completed, what is the critical things he needs to do within the next 18 hours he's away? Everything else in noise is irrelevant. So that's basically how you decide whether this meeting is relevant or whether it's nice. As long as it's part of that critical 3 things that we need to do, they can progress. The most of the time meetings become nice, it's a waste of time. So that's why you should understand what you need to achieve in this. I'm not saying the meeting to 18 hours, but in this particular time period, addresses irrelevant. So meetings are a time killer, then also coffees and social media, which is a time killer. I myself is a very bad exponent. I was on the phone. This is where the focus comes in, and it just code as well. Elon Musk is about 100% sick. Yeah. So he hardly attends these sort of events or anything.
and just keeps open. So that's, I use a quick way of explaining. Although to be honest, I'm not a practitioner of that, which we should be practitioners.
The first thing and the only thing that I kind of look at is if the person has suffered or has the ability to suffer, and that you can gauge in like 15 minutes. Because, obviously I've had these conversations for 16 years, hundreds, if not thousands of founders. So within 15 minutes, I know whether this person can suffer and if they can't. Like I said, because being an entrepreneur is now a fad. It's like, being a rock star. I know that this is not there.
Little bit moment there. So let's say that you do find someone who's seems like a genuine opportunity. How do you actually make that decision? I think a lot of us would be curious as to what goes through your mind when you're looking for something genuinely investable, capable of scaling. What are the key indicators you actually surface up in a conversation, in a meeting? Where do you go first? Do you go to the balance sheet? Like, how do you actually surface up?
I think I can say what I don't look for, right? I don't care about market size. I don't care about competition. So those things, it doesn't really matter. Even the idea or the product, I don't really look into it. It's just predominant levels, 70-80% is on the founder. How fast are they learning? How fast are they unlearning? And like Sameera mentioned, execution. That's, if you look at across our entire portfolio, it's everyone is insanely good at executing. I have another framework. There are 4 things that I look for, right? So one is they have to be in the spectrum. So, ADHD, autistic, love those founders because you have to be a little bit in the spectrum to do that. The second thing, and this is, think of it like a Venn diagram of 4 circles, right? The ideal founder is in the middle, obviously. The other part is what I call revenge or redemption, right? So revenge is not in the sense, so I'm going to take revenge of you. It's just that they're so pissed off about something that is there, and essentially it's something that they have already faced and they want to solve. The second ideal, and all a founder will have these 4 things, right? It's not one circle per person or anything like that. The redemption part is, I also believe that every family there is that one black sheep kind of that goes aside and do stuff, right? And that is the other circle. And then the fourth is also, which is similar to the second circle, which is like you want to have somebody who has a chip on their shoulder, because those are the kind of 4 qualities. So if it's there, then I think at any given moment there's at least 7 or 8 companies that we are kind of working very closely and grooming them. Where we haven't done investment, we will, at times we might even not invest in those companies, but we want to help them become good entrepreneurs so that we can at least recommend them to some of our investors, and then they'll invest. And the reason why we wouldn't invest in those companies is not because they're bad. It's just that it doesn't fall into our thesis and we might not be the right investor for them. But we like the founder, we like that person, and that's sort of like the framework essentially.
Thank you, Sameera. So it's very interesting to have the investor and investee on the same panel. This is a curious question that came up even when we were preparing for this session is, when did you know it was the right time to look for funding when you're working with Kaiju Labs?
It's an interesting story. I was like, when I was doing the previous startup Kaiju Labs, I was so wrong about everything. So even when we went for funding, I had no idea how to make money, what the product was. The only thing I saw the opportunity in the blockchain technology. So I was thinking the way back, for example, let's say as a Sri Lankan, sitting in Sri Lanka, what are the new emerging technologies that I can go into, and which doesn't require lots of capital. So back then, the blockchain was getting traction. So we thought about building a wallet, because anyway, the consumer part of the any blockchain interaction would be a wallet. So what we did was we just went and without even building, we went and pitched this crazy idea to Chalinda, and then they didn't fund us in it, actually. They said maybe, and then we applied to an Singaporean accelerator, and then we got funding, and then we said do you want to join this round? And they said yes. That was how we and then you have to learn how to negotiate as well. Let's say if you're waiting for their funding, we will never get the funding. So you have to be a bit of an asshole and look for other opportunities. Then these guys will follow you.
I want to add to that, right? So I've known them. I think university they did a company called Live Room, which is how we initially met. And I was part of a different company, and that was helping startups raise capital. No investor would invest in Live Room, and it was for retarded reasons. Everything from by the way they spoke to the way they dressed. I was so pissed off at that time, but they went on to build Live Room, which now does more than $1 million plus ARR, very profitable. Does some crazy stuff for Hollywood movies and all of these things. So when they came, we didn't understand anything about Web3. We didn't even understand whatever the language they were like. What is this? And it was, we were also in the process of raising the fund, so we also didn't have capital, right? So we had to drag the conversation far enough so that our LPs would give us money, and this is how it works. But it's still that's why I said you need to have the ability to kind of be an asshole and suffer. So they were suffering, we were suffering. Everybody's ultimately raising capital, right? Entrepreneurs are raising capital from investors. I have to raise capital from investors. And none of my investors are from here, right? Every single investor, to the earlier point that Vidushan also asked, is how do you test it? All my investors I just met on LinkedIn. It's not because I have a network or, I have a surname that's been kind of, marinated for generations, or I've gone to a school that is synonym with Ceylon or whatever. It's just nothing, right? It's everything that is built. You have to build in public. And then eventually you will attract few people who will come and kind of, take a punt on you. But once you get a few successes, then the snowball effect comes in, right? But that's essentially how it runs.
Just really quickly, we had a penultimate question. My last question for the night is, what is the uncomfortable truth this room needs to hear today? I think we heard it quite earlier on, so that's great. So this is my penultimate question. Just a little bit more focus again on, take us through the experience of being acquired and transitioning to KAST. What was that acquisition experience like for you? What surprised you? What would you do differently? What would you definitely not do? Very curious about that.
Actually, it was a company merger. So all of our shares converted into the holding company shares. But these guys cashed out. We got our shares converted into the holding company shares. That's how it works. And then there are many ways that you can structure it. Sometimes you sell for the product. Sometimes you acquire another company for the team. In our case, it was partly for product and mainly for the team that we had in Sri Lanka.
Thilan, we have you for the final question for the night. It's a bit of a wordy one, so I'll just read it right from my screen here. And everyone's alluded to this throughout the conversation, even Thilan referenced it at the very beginning. So maybe this will be something that we can hopefully tie some things together, or maybe enlighten on a new aspect of the ecosystems we have around us. Maybe you can tie us in there. So in many successful economies, the government enable growth, not just regulate it. For Sri Lankan founders and private businesses, what should they understand about working with government or public sector ecosystems? And what capabilities do they need to build if they want public-private collaboration to become a serious pathway to scale beyond borders?
Okay, I was thinking while you were asking me the question. I think you need to build a very strong industry lobby body and represent Zoikers and select those who are being on behalf carefully. Now, few years back this body, where would go a career? Where you would go to lobby first is the central bank. In my view, central bank payments and settlement division has been a killer of fintech in this country. I don't know whether I'm correctly saying that. And they killed the entrepreneurship in terms of introduction of fintech. Next, what I would do is, I would ask banks to divest completely from Lanka Clear. This is not a very popular statement I'm making. Form yourselves into a strong body. Present the analysis. We have a fantastic monetary board. I mean, at least as of now, the governor is not a political appointee like what we had in the past, and causing this country to go under. And this is actually interview that I conducted, the motivation I conducted anti-South Asia, where the governor Hans Tesuria, the World Bank, and the governor of this stage is some very progressive state, but countries together to take it out $100,000 or what tag you automatically so that you only cooperate with Singapore, convert copies and take it out. So this follows one of those states. So in a nutshell, how do you set a strong body, both opposite?
Thank you so much. Can we just get take a moment to sort of just take everything in, and I hope everyone's been preparing their questions and answers because the Q&A session is now upon them. We have maybe time, if you guys will indulge us, for 2 or 3 questions max, maybe, and we'll keep them short, concise. If we can just have the mic. Huh? Oh, no, we have a really good editing team. We'll make sure none of this is a light of day.
Don't be software as easy.
Some others network back. So, strategy.
Okay, I think it would be great if people who have questions can just raise up their hands so our team can identify. We'll turn on the lights as well. Look at these lovely faces.
How we see that?
Yes. So if we can just have a raise of hand. Oh yes, please go ahead.
Being door and the person details was remember and you say Thilan, he is out to me for last 35 years and when he was a German, he overcome he signed a co for the beer company make a late beer for the they come startup but it's take because of the rock cash. So that was one of the factors why I am to coin the players in Sri Lanka, though it's mainly it's influenced by the top issue. It's not prepared as at the sport super bad and ovary. So my point, I come to a point now. This Tibak sick, though the central bank says you the parent settled as a killer of the fintech in Sri Lanka, but you handling the skill they are handling the fintech regulator sandbox. So they are one of the main the growth. So the main criteria is any of the fintech startups in Sri Lanka they should collaborate with the traditional bank.
Let's say the number has gone staged.
Yeah. So but here the catch accelerator when we are starting the fintech startup the Hutch in collaboration with the fintech of Sri Lanka. So the most of the fintech founders they don't go on why it is to collaborate with the bank.
Where?
So we should consider it better. But
If you can just maybe. Capture to this. Yes, please. Thank you.
so
So this is, because it's a very because we can't work in the superbank because they pay both they.
So you can look at as an industry body and make a case. That was my body. And the other Kabara, senior leadership, want report this.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, if you can ask one clear, clean question and then we can move on to the next person, that would be lovely. Thank you so much.
So, rather question, I want to come out with the one point, very point. That's why now we are borrowing with the port sticker on today. This is the one of the Index Innovation Hub. Not only in Sri Lanka, but South Asia. So we have shifted the Sri Lanka main diet to the offshore now. So we are focusing. So we are criticized. But so just I want to support is the freelance point. That's why that my so I'm not to ask any questions. So just to support this Kila, because we are shifted already, not focusing the weight at Sri Lanka, but also. So we want to bring the talent, the Sri Lankan talent to the port city and the talent industry finance center to establish the Index Innovation Hub. So just to support this freelance only, that's my point. What I'm trying to say. Yeah, not any question.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you. Do we have any other questions? Okay. We have a couple at the back there. Okay. If you can just keep your hands raised while the team comes to you, that would be great. Yeah.
And it's good work because I run tools that works on SaaS. We recently came out with this 80% VAT. I think it's about to not just us, most of the SMBs they run with. But here is something that you have to review code, like people expected this. I just want to get your ideas on that. In other countries also make something like this pops up. We are also competing startups. And startups actually can offer better prices than obviously. Well, when we're on the scale like this, at least something like this, startups. What are your advices and what other cases that you see in other countries? The medium will scale for parties like us. Also, I have found the CEOs.
You got to increase prices. I think that's one of the things that we talked about, right? All companies here, I think, they're priced very low because, see, more companies, the reason why companies die is the lack of sales and not because of a lack of a product or anything like that. And companies or founders tend to think that if I'm priced low, I will increase my sales. That doesn't happen. You have to price it. That's why I often said you have to first value your time, your effort that you're putting in, and then price it up. And every country has their taxes. I think in Singapore and all of that, it's a lot more higher than what we have here. I haven't really looked at what the thing is, but then taxes are part of the government and all of that. So you have to pay taxes. The problem is, see, to Thilan's point, I think Sri Lanka is a very good location because entrepreneurship is about solving problems and we have a ton of problems. Unfortunately, not solving the problem is also a solution in Sri Lanka. Right? It'll go. So if you go and build something for that particular audience who doesn't want to pay, then you will always struggle. Ultimately, there are only two ways to make money. Either you're cheaper than someone or you're better than someone. Those are the only two ways to make money, irrespective of what type of business that you are doing. Even if you are selling, drugs or whatever, I'm not enforcing that, right? But those are the only two things. If your value proposition is, I have built, this fantastic product, but I am cheaper, then you're shooting yourself in the foot, right? And that's what a lot of entrepreneurs do. They end up building a Ferrari, but end up selling it at a price of a Maruti. That's not a sustainable business from the get-go. So you have to first value yourself. There are three ways to price a product, value-based pricing, your cost-based. So you need to use all of these things and then first benchmark all of these things and then go to market. It means that some of your customers will drop out. That's fine. You will still end up making decent money from whoever host that is there.
Do we have any other questions? Guys, you guys can ask anything you want within reason. So don't be shy.
Yeah, whatever the hand that were there.
Was it good? The Pappy should I think then they were interested, right? They were made it 20.5 and look how they result. SEC then is so easily. But it blended their seats. Irish is.
Okay, these guys are really nice. You all don't have to be debated. Just ask some questions. It's totally okay. Yes, lovely.
Yes, we have one more. I'm Mohammed. So, Sir Diluba mentioned that the like B2C products is a new way. So, with this AI-driven world, anyone can build a product right now and throughout releases a new feature. The valuations of such companies top the next week itself. So, with this much competition and giving the power of code to everyone, you see low value in SaaS and software products for
Yeah, definitely. Like for example, SaaS means let's say no. Let's be realistic. Like no one is going to run like let's say if you are let's say a accountant or someone like no one is going to like build anything on their own, right? So like what you can do is like let's say no one is going to get Claude and then build something on their own. Like so, if you are in the software industry, now, let's say for example, like a product like IFSO, like a very giant product. Now, if earlier it required maybe 150 developers, now what you only need 5 developers, like 5 fresh graduates out of the university can build a competitive product like that. So that's the way how you think it. Like let's say now, if you can build something like that, because anyway, like with AI, I understand SaaS is challenged, but you can challenge the larger conglomerates, those who are controlling the industry with AI. That's the way I see it.
Any other questions? We'll take one last question. So this is a really good time to just have your direct one-on-one time with the panel. Thank you. Yes, anyone else? Yes.
Narita, my product is certainly not a tech product, but I just want to know when we are pitching to an investor. So I'm coming from marketing background, so we were told that branding and sustainability, ethical sourcing and everything is important. So when we are picking an investor, are you looking at those sort of kind of is a bad is there, if sustainability is there, ethical sourcing is there, or there's the value of the product, or how we scale it, or just at numbers, or actually more look at the ethical side of it.
Should I take that? So it really depends on what the product is, but the thing is this, right? Like I said earlier, the only advantage, irrespective of what type of company you're building, that you have when you're a startup is speed, and you can't be everything from day one, right? So some of these things you will need to kind of adjust. And the other thing is like the most kind of frequent question I would get is, how do you attract investors? So if I ask the same question, how do you attract investors? It's the same way that you attract anyone, right? You first have to be attractive. So how do you make it attractive? If you can make your value proposition attractive through the ESG side of things and all of that, then you got to build your story around that. For consumer products, obviously brand and all of these things matter. That's why I said it depends on what you're selling, whether it's a consumer product or whatever. I don't have any experience doing non-tech companies, so I'm probably end up adding negative value. But some of these things are kind of universal.
Okay, I think that is it for our panelists up on the stage and for the Q&A session. Thank you all so much for taking time out of your day to be here today. And for the next hour, we have a networking session. We have beers, we have iced coffee, we have food from Kang's Kitchen. Please do enjoy, refresh your minds after this hearty session. So thank you guys, and let's enjoy the rest of the time we have today. Thank you. Thank you guys. Thank you.